Good morning, everybody. I want to call to order the meeting of the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission for January 13th, 2025. And let's do a roll call from my left to right.
I'm on, but
Now you are. Yeah, the green
Rob
light.
Knight, 4th District.
Karen Steinwalks, District 3.
Ronald Nye at large.
Turned it off. Okay. Keith Kaufman Gray, 1st District Chair. We do have a quorum. Okay, well, let's move on to public comment. Is there any public comment in order to allow public testimony, anything that is not on today's agenda that the public would like to comment?
We have no letters received and we have nobody in the attendees column.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to the minutes. These are the minutes for December 9, 2024. I did receive first draft of these. Unfortunately, the changes didn't get to Jonathan till late, so he didn't get them out to you. So these have some changes that were done, but obviously there's still a lot of work that probably needs to be done. So what I always like to recommend is look at what you said to make sure that it's the way you meant it to be, wanted it to be. And then of course, anything else. We're used to having perfect minutes, and it's going to be a little more challenging now. I mean, Jonathan, what you do is you listen to the tape, right?
Yeah.
And everything is off the tape. And I know sometimes when we say something, it doesn't come out what our brain is thinking. And as we discussed in the past, that as long as it doesn't change the whole intent, it's fine to change how it came out of your mouth at that time to make it more, a little more easier. And we had a meeting, the subcommittee, and Howard and Randy saw these, Commissioner. And I know Commissioner Wittosh gave me a few edits at that meeting. So his is pretty much what he wanted. Anyone like to add any comments to the minute?
I see a typo. Do you want to know?
Yes, anything like that, definitely.
I'm looking at page 5. Commissioner Knott. Hayes. H-A-S-E.
Thank you. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Jonathan, would like to play some nice background music.
Maybe I could find a nice,
If anyone's watching online, they know that we haven't gone off the air.
maybe those fireplace videos.
Yes. Yes. That was done at the very end of the, yeah. Sub, and it's actually, as Ryerson pointed out, it's actually an ad hoc. Sub. Anyone wants to move step? Just go right. That one change. Okay, okay.
I have a few changes too.
We'll find what you have, and then we'll just go down. Commissioner. Spelling's correct. Circle it.
Yeah.
Sounds like every. I did. I knew there's a lot of stuff there. You'll need. There wasn't a pack. I was hoping. Try to make sure that happens. So you can still finish reading. I'll go ahead and have Commissioner Nye start on what adjustments on the minutes.
Page 2 at the bottom under the bullet that says Commissioner Nye. On the second line under Commissioner Nye, there's a repeat of the first few words of the that sentence that begins with the commission. the commission through Amber Long, period. I think that should just be deleted because the next sentence has the same words, except that the R is left out of the word through. You see the commission through Amber Long.
Good.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I see. Sentences. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then on that same sentence, could already pull information. You could delete the first use of the word already. I guess it doesn't matter that some of the remarks I have here were actually said after several others. They're a response to what several other commissioners had said, and now they've been combined. It's all right with me, as long as that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Group them. Yeah. All right. Moving along to page 4, going down almost to the bottom under Commissioner Nye. On the 4th sentence, this 4th line, the ideal situation would be to list the trails without numbers, comma, so that comma should be a period. So it's the end of the sentence. All right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
And the
That-
next sentence
Yeah.
should be historic report.
Oh. Either in that sentence, probably either one is all right. But you're right there where you say the word right after historical reports on the next line. You need to insert the words, there are no building permits, instead of just no building permits. Yeah. Well, you're fast.
Try to be.
Then jumping to
Yeah.
sure. Thank you. I missed that. All right. Jumping to page 5, again under Commissioner Nye, someone has pointed out, you looks like you've been capitalizing the first letter in the comment. So prior should have a capital P. There's something wrong with the prior to this reactive phase. Reactive kind of says something I don't think I would have said, but maybe I did. Did I say it that way? I
Usually try and go off of what the. table-
okay, leave it in then. If I said it prior to this at reactive phase, and then of course we have to spell phase correctly. HLAC passively weighted. Did I really say that? All right, leave it in.
Must have been after Mr. Restrepo.
Maybe I was ticked off. I don't know. We passively weighted. All right, that's all for me.
Okay, who wants to go next? I'm up.
This starts
He meant without numbers instead of unlisted. Yeah, without numbers. Oh,
Mr. Chair, on the same sentence in item 7, you understand that Bollard is, I think it's Bollard. Yeah, not capitalized, of course. And then when you go to the end of the sentence, hazard should be a small h. The guy who built that bridge was named Hazard, so maybe that's where that came from. I don't know. Thank you.
Sluga? Okay, can we have a motion with the changes, proposed changes? That's the minute.
Chair, could I note a couple changes too?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Council has, go right ahead.
In number 3 under the minutes, where it says recused, I think that should be abstained.
Wait, what page?
So it's page 1, number 3. And then below that, Chaffee has 2 E's, I think. And then on number 8, there was under Commissioner Nye, Amber Long's comments, apostrophe S. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Is that it? Okay. Together, I want to move to accept the minutes as changes.
I'll move that we accept the minutes of December as amended.
Commissioner Nye, second.
I will second.
We all were here, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 4. Staff update. The planning development HLAC staff will provide a brief oral announcement or report on items of general interest. Do we have any staff updates today? Howard, we saved a chair for you right there.
We did have the Cold Spring Canyon be a resolution passed from the Board of Supervisors on January 7th to make the Cold Spring Canyon Bridge a historic landmark for the county of Santa Barbara. So
Wonderful.
it's part of our staff update.
Great work. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, move on to chair. Did we do minutes? We did minutes. I'm sorry. Oh, we did minutes. Budget. Okay, let's move on to the chair project discussion. And I do have some things today. A lot has happened since we last met before the holidays. So I'm just going to go through and just give you updates. On December 10th, you should remember our last meeting was December 9th, the day before, I think. On December 10th, the Board of Supervisors looked at the appeal for the Chaffee residents nomination. And you probably all know, but it was upheld by the Board of Supervisors on a vote of 5-0. Commissioner Nye and myself were there to listen to the supervisors' comments. And in general, I'll just say that they were not comfortable in voting for a landmark when the property owner wanted it. So that's what happened with that. On the following week, Tuesday, on December 17th, the Board of Supervisors presented a resolution to Lansing Duncan for his years of volunteering to commissions in the county of Santa Barbara. It was a really nice resolution. Former Supervisor Gail Marshall from the 3rd District spoke on his behalf on all the work he did on the San Ynez General Plan. And I know Supervisor Hartman also spoke very well. And after, all the supervisors said something. And after receiving all the praise, Lansing spoke, thanked them. And in his thank you, though, he said, I'm going to quote just a few things. That was, right to the end, Commissioner Duncan was fighting for HLAC. And he says, HLAC has a serious budget problem. This is what he said to the supervisors after everyone thanked him so much. The county should not be charging property owners for board's final stamp of approval when landmark their property. When HLAC nominates a property, the cost of your final stamp of approval shouldn't come out of HLAC's pitiful $21,000. So anyway, I want to personally thank Lansing for speaking up at the very end. And I think one of the commissioners said, Lansing, you don't mind speaking up even to the end. So anyway, I thought that was a nice. Okay, so that's that. As mentioned, on January 7th, Cold Springs was approved. This was a very interesting thing. As you know, we had the landmark for the Chaffee residence was supposed to be landmark number 56. So when we approved Cold Springs, it was 57. And the day before, when we had our subcommittee for budget, it was realized that we're gonna have a gap in our numbering system. And I got home from after the meeting, it was like 4 o'clock. I just called Ann's office and her voicemail. I just said, Ann, I don't know if anything can be done, but if the Board of Supervisors could change it tomorrow on the dais, that way we won't have a space. And sure enough, when I went there for the meeting, they changed it at the dais. So thank you so much for getting that going. I mean, otherwise we'd have to figure out what to do with the blank number. I mean, it's not.
Thank you for spotting that.
But it does make things a lot easier. Okay. So more about the Cold Springs Bridge. Just in general about the nomination, as you know, that was the first meeting with the new supervisor and new people being sworn in. Supervisor Lee is now 1st District, and they were in a very good mood. Supervisor Capps was appointed chair for the Board of Supervisors for 2025. She's in 2nd District. And so after the presentation by Planning Development and public comment, which I spoke, they did ask questions. And what I thought was very interesting is they personally asked me questions from sitting in the audience directly. In the past, the board would usually only ask questions to staff and get answers from staff. But I thought it was very refreshing to see that they wanted my personal opinion on something. So that might be something happening, that might change the future. But Supervisor Hartman asked about the suicide barrier. And, and then she asked about, did it cause the integrity of the bridge? And I mentioned that, as we saw in the report, that it is removable. So that's why it still had the integrity to be a historic landmark. And she appreciated the answer. And then Supervisor Lee asked if there would be a plaque. And I just mentioned that we probably will want a plaque, but we'll have to wait till the next fiscal year because we don't have money in the budget for that. And then what was interesting is that 3 of the supervisors doing their comments did mention that that there is a concern that there's a funding problem with HLAC and it does need further discussion. 3 supervisors actually mentioned a budget problem with HLAC. Didn't say which way they go, but they're aware of that problem. So like I say, it was very, very positive, and it was just a really nice meeting. And of course, whenever we have a nomination, it was a very good feeling to walk out of there with a new nomination. Okay, let's move on to bronze plaques. And yes. Well, I think they, when we discuss it later, I think, they realize that we have a problem. Yes, I know. So let's see, Jonathan has a couple of pictures. I just wanted to go over bronze plaques. A couple of months ago, I said I had a Rocky Nook Park picture of the plaque. And so I just wanted everyone to see, that one was placed on a boulder. And that is on the very first parking lot as you go into Rocky Nook Park. And as you're walking up the road, that's the plaque. So I thought it looks very nice there. It, whenever we always have problems wanting to add signs to something that's natural, but I think it blends in, and when it gets more patina and stuff, it will be even more so. So I thought that was very good. And then the Sunday, the weekend after New Year's, I just happened to take a drive, usually it is the holidays to get out of the house. And I said, oh, I'm going to go by Coral Casino. So Coral Casino plaque is up. And so I took a picture of it. I'll let Jonathan find that one. And so it's right where we asked. It's right at the entrance. That picture there it is up close. And that's the glass doors. And if you know Coral Casino, the glass doors, you can look through, you see the pool and you see the ocean beyond. It's a beautiful setting. And you can see they had completely redid the front. It looks really nice. And the plaque is right there as everyone walks in, they see that plaque. So, it's not gaudy at all. It's there. So I think that looks really good. I wanted you to see that we are, all the work to get these plaques done is starting to pay off, with the sign.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
did you say that they have gone ahead and inserted that new door that we debated?
One of the commissioners asked me about that at our meeting on Monday, and I got out of the car and I parked in that lot behind the Biltmore where you walk. There's, Sunday, there's no parking along there. And I just walked, I saw the doors, I took a picture, and I really did not even look down the other direction to see. But I'm thinking that maybe it isn't that visible, because if it was visible, my eyes might have went to it. So I don't know, but if I went, I took a picture and I walked back to the car. And, I'm just saying that if it was really obnoxious, I probably would have noticed it. So anyway, so that's that. So thank you, Jonathan, for showing those. Another update here for Chair, just Moody Sisters cottage demolition. As you know, that's something we've been going at for quite a while. I mentioned before, there was a hearing on November 4th. It was a court hearing from the county versus the owner. And I just heard that a settlement has been made. And all I know is HLAC will be receiving an update from planning development about what the settlement was. So I don't know anything. But I just wanted you to know that it was settled and we will be hearing more about that. And that is it for the chair project.
I have a couple questions. One comment. What happened to the trail, the 6 trail designations that were somehow dropped through the cracks, and something else was given those numbers, and then this was discovered, and there was discussion about how do we handle it? Do we merge them?
That was the last meeting.
It was. Just wondered what happened.
Well, we voted, it's even in the minutes, we voted to put them on the website in chronicle order near the 14 to 19 ones that were without numbers. And they'll be having a link to the original resolution so that they will be posted as being historic landmarks. County of Santa Barbara.
Say 14 through 19.
Well, I off the cuff of my hand, I forget the numbers that were.
But I believe there were other landmarks that were still those numbers. So we had a problem of double.
That's what we just discussed at that
We were going to
meeting.
leave that.
And we're leaving those exactly as they are. And under those landmarks, Jonathan is working with IT to put the trails directly under it. And then there'll be an explanation why, they don't have numbers. And of course, there'll be a link to the resolution the County Board of Supervisors approved in 1977. So they'll officially be on there. And then as far as putting more information, that's something that we work on. They are going to be on the website.
Okay, I understand. The question is, it's just an observation. It's interesting that the Board of Supervisors opposes designations without owner's consent, but they uphold the law very strictly with regard to tearing down a landmark without a permit, without some kind of advisory. It's interesting that they support the law in both cases. I'm just wondering, I wonder if how we structure our approach to properties that we would like to see designated, but understand if the owner objects, we really are not going to be able to get to the end. So achieve our objective. So I'm just wondering, any way in which education and persuasion of owners better understand what the process is. I think most owners object because of they believe they're putting themselves in constraints, their property in constraints, and it prevents achieving the fullest, highest and best use of their property.
Right, okay. We're getting away from chair discussion.
Yes. but
We are
just-
discussing the budget, and that is kind of in the budget, so we can bring that up during our discussion of the budget.
Just an
But
observation.
yeah, but I mean, that's something that, and there's other things we can discuss during the budget. I mean, we can discuss all that in our talking point. Okay, well, let's move on to item number 6, the HLAC budget. Before you is the current budget numbers through the end of December. And it's pretty much nothing has changed except for the staff support line item has gone up. It's 152% of our budget. 50% of the year has elapsed, and we're now at 64% of expenses for the year. So we're now trending higher than our total budget. And this is just an informational item. We'll be discussing this more later on. And just for people's knowledge, I don't think I received the last small bill for the Arroyo Hondo Bridge from Ms. Long, so that was probably. And thank everybody. I want to thank everyone for submitting their mileage and stuff. The actual thing are getting reimbursed. Here, and then we miss the deadline. Any comments? Okay, we'll move on to number 7, district report. Individual commissioners may present brief reports that would be of interest to the public and or commissioners. Have any?
I was contacted by the owner of the Davidson House who are trying to sell their property again.
Mhm.
I've run into their reach lines. So they are not part of the Los Olivos district where we have the water problems. So they're not part of that. But when they went to get their reports for the owner, they were told that they would have to replace it. So that the advanced water treatment system, those are out. Not sure why they could just replace it. But they are not in that district. Like, they don't have a big enough acreage to isn't big enough. It's hysterical.
Thank you for. It's nothing. Out of our hands on some. any other, I know in between January, there probably isn't much. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Knight.
The Mission Canyon Bridge is officially repaired again. We'll see how long that lasts. Probably 6 months or so. Secondly, I had the absolute thrill of taking a tour of one of our landmarks, the Casa del Herrero in Montecito. They came in here a few years ago with a gate they wanted us to approve. But it is, you might recall one of our prior commissioners was the director there until a few years ago. And now it's a whole new team with professional backgrounds, and they are really on top of that place. And the tour was absolutely splendid and full of information and very enjoyable. So I would recommend anybody who has a little bit of time to sign up. I went with a group from the main Beg House. So they opened their doors to us, but to the public, they charge $50, I think, for the tour. But if that's not a problem for you, I highly recommend it. And I suppose we could maybe ask them to give us a tour, since they appreciate what it means to be a historic landmark, and they're fundraising and doing some stuff. But it's an absolutely killer place to visit. And the whole house, the walls, the ceiling, all the furniture is brought directly from Spain and is from 14 to 1500s. It's just astounding. I would like them to personally, I'd like to learn something about the staff. It's right now, it's kind of, I'm shooting my mouth off, but to me, history is more than just a billionaire building a house and a great garden. And, it must have had a lot of household help and gardeners there. And they need to incorporate that into their interpretation. Where do they live? What do they do? How do they do it? My 2 cents.
Yeah, some of those estates I know have people that have worked generations. Now 30. Go ahead. Oh, no. Well, they didn't have a tour. Yeah, it was private ownership back then. That was when Valverde was trying to visitors. At that time,
Could I just ask you to kind of go back to the very beginning? Tell me what this project is, or what it is, and
This was an estate that was built in the mid 1920s. The architect was George Washington Smith, and the gardening was the garden design was by oh, thank you. Yeah, that's the front of it. I don't think it's quite, probably looks a little different now.
I think you have the wrong. Herrera.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
No kidding, it looks different. No wonder. So briefly, so the owner, a man named Stedman, spelled with two E's, was what would be in our era a billionaire. And he spared no expense in buying and acquiring and taking apart and shipping back materials and furniture and art from Europe, particularly Spain. And that's all very craftsman-like, and it's a very unique and wonderful place for just the sheer preservation of what's there. And Stedman was he always wanted to work in metals. So the name Casa del Herrero means a house of the blacksmith. So in addition to the house and the garden, there's his huge shop where he worked in metalworking and lumber and all kinds of things like that. He's a very unusual person in terms of his artistic qualities. And so anyway, the tours, extensively through the house and then out into the garden, and the whole property is on the National Register. And they've got, I don't know, something like 11 acres there.
It's located on down the road. Same area. And okay, there he is.
That's the rear elevation. And you see there were tables and chairs set up under those arches, and we had a little snack out there. Oh, there's the front. There's the front, yeah. And it looks exactly like that. What's interesting is there, that's a good one. Can you enlarge that a little bit? You can see above that window is a gutter, a very ugly gutter that was put in for practical reasons by George Washington Smith. You can just see it's running right where those plants are spilling over. Plants must be in the gutter in that photograph. But it's all along the front, and it was something that George Washington Smith, of all people, insisted on putting in for the protection of the building. And you can see that the pipes actually, the drainage pipes curl down on both sides of that second-story door, and the water runs through the wall to get out from the roof down through the wall. There you go. So you see those curved pipes up there. Those are the downspouts. Well, anyway, I was never seen George Washington Smith do that before, and it does kind of detract from the house, but it's original. It's an original feature.
Any other district group? Okay, let's move on. Standard. This will be report from HLAC, the ad hoc subcommittee, 2025-2026 budget subcommittee. HLAC 2025-2026 ad hoc budget subcommittee will present to HLAC its proposed talking points to the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors for the proposed HLAC 2025-2026 budget for discussion. We'll also present a proposed HLAC budget for 2025-2026 for discussion and possible approval. So as you know, the last meeting, we formed a subcommittee to look into possible talking points when we talk to supervisors about our problems with the budget. And a lot has happened since our last meeting. Like I mentioned, the supervisors seem to know that there is a budget issue with HLAC. And so let me just go over a little bit in the background here. So at the December 9th HLAC meeting, an ad hoc Budget Subcommittee was formed to create talking points that supervisors could use when they talk to their supervisor and to look into what a realistic budget should be for HLAC in fiscal year 2025, 2026, which starts July 1st, 2020. The ad hoc subcommittee met this past Monday, January 6th in Buellton. Before the meeting, draft talking points were created by members. And what we discussed and detailed all of the draft talking points. We discussed, should we create a letter to send to the Board of Supervisors, either from HLAC or from the subcommittee. It was decided to bring our draft talking points and draft proposed budget to the full HLAC for a working session, and these are what are for you today. These are the talking points. The idea that we kind of went, and Howard and Randy, you can both chime in, is to create something that if you decide to talk to your supervisor, not a requirement, you do, that you would have a background of where we're at, you feel more comfortable. And we actually were thinking that maybe this is something that if we agree on, it's something you could actually even hand to them after the talk, that they could mull in their, on their own. As you know, not all supervisors, they have very busy schedules, so sometimes it's almost impossible to make that appointment. So that's why we were thinking about maybe a letter. But anyway, that was that. This week after the meeting, County Council reached out to me and said that the chair, which is me, should reach out to the CEO's office and also Lisa Plowman, Director of Planning and Development, for more information on how the process of the budget is done. And I got a response back from Lisa Plowman, and she is head of Planning and Development. And she reached out to me to sit down. She wanted to have a meeting to sit down with her to, quote, discuss the county budget process. So we scheduled a meeting, and it actually happened this past Friday. So I had a meeting with Lisa Plowman on January 10th on Friday. So everything you see before you was done Monday, finalized Monday. I had the meeting on Friday. So I learned a lot of information from that meeting, which can change a lot of the stuff you see in front of you. So I want to go over briefly of the meeting and what I learned from the meeting, so I can bring that to you. So I met with Lisa Plowman for almost an hour. Overall, it was very positive. And I think we both learned something from each other. She learned in more detail what we feel we're going, problems we're having. And I definitely learned a lot about how a process is done. And so I'm going to first just give things that I learned from the meeting right off the bat. First of all, they just had a 5-year budget outlook that was presented to the Board of Supervisors, which was actually done at the meeting of the Cold Spring after. And the 5-year budget is not looking good. And in general, the next year budget will require some cutbacks. That's the 2025, 2026. And then the years after that look really bad. I guess there's a lot of things that are required, that come out of the budget that are coming due, that the budget is going to look really bad the following years. So the budget is not in a good situation. And here's some other things I've learned. I'm just going to read them off. Planning and Development does not have a separate budget. It all comes out of the main county general fund. I always thought there was a separate pool for police and fire, but it's basically everything out of the general fund. So the idea of asking for some money from planning development, some money from the general fund is kind of a moot point. It all has to be requested together. All appeals are charged to the county, not the person doing the appeal. So like HLAC, we had an appeal. They do not charge the person that does the appeal. It goes against HLAC. We kind of learned after that. I asked, well, what about, say, the Planning Commission with the Miramar project, which was appealed. They made a decision, it was appealed. And that was charged to planning. wasn't charged. Okay. Planning Commission and MBAR do not have budgets. All their funding is directly out of planning development. So they do not work with a budget like we do. Planning Development has decided to have a planner, which will be Nicole Liu, at every HLAC meeting going forward. Now, the big question. In our proposed budget, we put in money for planner. Nicole is a senior planner. Senior planners do not charge an hourly rate for their work. So HLOC will not be charged for her time attending meetings. So that is something I learned. So even though we're going to have someone here, it will not be charged to our HLOC. So those are the real specific things I learned. I think are very eye-opening. And I just want to go over in general. I'm not going to go into specifics because this is kind of general things. I mentioned the Mills Act, and she's still very open about looking into that more. It wasn't a definite no, definite yes. Actually, she kind of said, well, I'm not going to go there. Let's see. Okay. General supportive of some projects still coming to HLAC for review. Deemed appropriate of using fines against resources to be used by HLAC. So in other words, if what we're going to hear about the Moody Sisters Cottage, she is supportive of maybe some of those fines being directed to HLAC to use for historic resource projects. I showed her the proposed budget that you saw today. I decided, what the heck? So she at least has an idea of what we're thinking. And she was very appreciative that she had that. And we actually looked at it and she tried to figure out. So she's planning to, right away when we get to the discussion, we mentioned we had put in $10,000 for a planner. That's in money now we don't really need. We're not going to be charged for that. But what she's doing, she took the budget I had and she is going to look at it. She has some ideas and then she's going to get back to me in a couple of weeks. So whatever we do today, I think we just need to put on hold and find out what comes back from her. But it's actually, she is personally is going to be working to see how, we can get the funds we need to do what we want to do. She is supportive in general of the 4 nominations per year, which is what is in our proposal. We feel that the subcommittee felt that we could realistically go through the process of 4 nominations a year. So we need funding for those 4 nominations. There was a talk, she said she looked at our budget and said maybe some of our professional service money, like say around 2,000, could be moved to the support line item. We don't always use that 9,000, but we do need the money for nominations. Website work, that all would come out of that line item. And like I said, she'll get back in a few weeks. So what next? Today, I think we should go over the talking points we have. And I'm thinking this is kind of a working session. I'm going to ask County Council if that seems like it's okay, appropriate to do that. I thought I could just kind of read what the subcommittee had done. And then as we read, like I say, what I just gave you, new information, some of the stuff will be mute. We can change it as we go through. And then of course, everyone can have input on it. I know this is all new to you. You haven't seen this. The subcommittee. And so that's what I thought I would do. And then we do, so I'm talking about is to look at the HLAC 2025-2026 budget, which is what I consider like the proposed talking points. Now, these have been revised since the Monday meeting. I've got a lot of great input from both commissioners and the subcommittee. And not everything that was given to me is in this, but I think I put in a lot of it. And then after we go through all of this, then we can look at that proposed budget that is also in. So Jonathan, when you're going to pull up the proposed HLAC 2020-25 budget, that has all the background. That's this one, yeah. So the whole idea is this, we're looking at this as talking point. But I think it's education for all of us too, at the same time. But the idea is, okay, give them a background. You know, what have we did in the past? And all of a sudden, what happened a couple of years ago? It's almost 2 years now, 1.5 years ago, when they changed. Oh, yes, I want to do that at the very beginning. Thank you so much. Because I know some of you have been talking, so we need to go through ex parte. Gosh, thank you. So if anyone here has talked to anyone concerning our budget specifically, please let us know now. We have it. Go ahead.
I had a discussion with my supervisor
And
on
who's that?
this topic, Bob Nelson, fourth district.
Same, Joan Hartman.
I mentioned I talked to Lisa Baldwin. Want to put that out there. Any other discussions?
I had a telephone call with Ms. Lou, the planner, about a lot of subjects, but I did Nicole Lou. I did mention some of the issues that HLAC was dealing with at the moment.
Very important to get this out. County Council. Okay, so let's get started on here. We have it, okay, Jonathan, not that one, the other, the talking one, the talking. That will be afterward. So let me just go through. So like I was saying, it's kind of in the sections. There's a background, what we did in the past, what changes happened about 1.5 years ago, and then what our current budget is, and then possible solutions, and then the final is the realistic HLAC proposed for the staff line item, and the very end is the proposed budget. So let me just read off in the recent past. If an applicant for a development permit required a historic report and that report indicated the property was eligible for a county landmark designation, E&D would put it on the HLAC agenda for review and comment. HLAC comments were sent to MBAR and Planning Commission for review. Applicants were charged staff time associated with preparing the paperwork for the HLAC hearing as part of their permit fees. So that was kind of how, when I first came on the board, we'd get here, agenda would be put in front of us. It'd be mostly projects that we were reviewing. 2, nominations for landmark places of merit designations were brought to HLAC at property owner's request, or landmarks or places of merit at the owner's request, using HLAC's forms found on the County of Santa Barbara website. The chair vetted the nomination and, if deemed eligible, referred to the full commission for discussion. If HLAC found the nomination acceptable and voted for designation, staff would prepare the resolution and present the resolution to the Board of Supervisors for final approval of the designation. Staff time to prepare and present the resolution to the Board of Supervisors was paid out of the Planning and Development General Fund and not charged to the applicant or to HLAC's annual budget. Now, the word general fund, I'm not quite sure how we do that because they don't really have a general fund, but it's just, I guess we could strike the line and just say paid out of the planning, out of planning development, and just get rid of general fund. 3, HLAC would review and direct Santa Barbara County staff regarding any proposed changes to existing county landmarks or places of merit. That's kind of given. 4, planning and development was assigned a staff planner to attend all HLAC meetings. Santa Barbara County architectural historian planner was a full-time funded position. Each development project brought to HLAC for review and comment would also be determined that the action was exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. So anytime we saw a project, at the same time, we would make sure that it was exempt for CEQA. So that project would have that determination when it went through. So that's pretty much how it was run. Now, think about if you want to add anything to this, delete anything, um, you know. But I'll go through and then we can go back and do the discussion. Okay, so starting about 1.5 years ago, planning development stopped referring development projects to HLAC for review when a historic report is required and the historic report indicates that the property is eligible for county landmark status. After the property owner, when asked, tells planning development that they do not want county landmark or places of historic merit designation. Planning development determined that the county chapter 18A limited HLAC purview to creating new landmarks and to maintain existing ones. So as we learned through not having meetings and when inquired why we weren't getting projects, that they were starting to ask property owners that had development projects if they wanted their project to become a landmark because the historic report said that it was eligible. If they said no, they would not direct it to us, it would go directly to Embark. That's kind of what. And the wording, I had a little problem with this wording. I know Howard had some wording changes, but trying to make it as clear as possible. Want to come up with different wording, that's fine, but that's the whole idea of that number. In response to planning development, new interpretation of HLAC scope and purview, HLAC created an ad hoc budget subcommittee to look at potential future county landmarks and places of historic merit. So that was the subcommittee that we've had that brought the current ones forward. And that was at the time is Commissioner Duncan, Commissioner Nye, and myself. At a meeting, we put a list of potentials. We asked all commissioners to look at your district, what you thought was potential. And that's kind of where we could the groundwork to move forward for landmarks. And we still have that subcommittee, which I have an opening now. Yes. Pardon me? Oh, it should be just a, okay, very good. It should be just a subcommittee. It's a subcommittee on future county landmarks and places of merit. And I assume that would still be called an ad hoc. Correct? Ms. Ryerson?
Yes, ad hoc is supposed to be of limited duration, just so you're aware. I mean, at some point it could,
Make
if it-
make it a standing.
yeah, if it goes on for very long,
It
then
probably should be. a
starts to
standing,
look more like a standing one.
but right now we'll just still call it. Okay, 3, HLAC commissioners, and thank you for that change, Commissioner Malcolm. HLAC commissioners understand and appreciate the need to work with owner applicants, taking into account both private property rights as well as historic preservation. HLAC always works with property owners to receive their consent prior to designation. And I think this is a given. We always do that. You know, we did go forward with one, but we did always work with that property owner to try to get their permission. 4, the fact that a planner is no longer assigned to attend HLAC meetings causes a lack of communication between planning development and HLAC and results in loss of the HLAC ability to protect the county's historic resources. Now, this is an item that if we're having a planner now signed, but currently we don't. I mean, there's not one today, so I'm thinking that should be probably kept in just to let people know that we've been running without a planning development sitting into our meetings. But it looks like number 4 is something that's going to be changing shortly. Number 5, when a property owner brings a nomination for county landmark or place of historic merit designation to allow designation to HLAC, the owner is now charged the staff time to bring the nomination from HLAC to Board of Supervisors. This started with the All Saints by the Sea Episcopal Church nomination during the middle of the process. They were charged over $5,800. The current retail billing rate of $292 per hour for staff time, resolutions to the Board of Supervisors approval cost $5,840, and a recent appeal to the Board of Supervisors was $7,300. Yeah, that was a separate, the appeal is separate, and the appeal You know, since it was together, I don't think they were charged, I don't think they charged 5,000 plus. I could be wrong. Our budget, yes. Now, they weren't in the past. Yeah, that's what I think, because it took the same time to do it as for, I mean, I think they. HLAC does not determine if a project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, since we no longer review development. Which to me, doesn't seem like a big thing, but I think it could be a big thing down the road. There's a challenge to any review. Our input on CEQA is not included on a project. And number 8, chapter 18A does not include not review and comment on development projects. So I just thought I'd put that in there. I think we had that discussion at our subcommittee.
Not
If you look through 18A, it says that we create landmarks. It says that we monitor landmarks. Nowhere does it say that we are not allowed to review and comment on projects that come to us.
say.
Yeah, the idea is, I mean, it was kind of mentioned at our subcommittee that, you know, it doesn't say that we cannot review projects. And they're saying that we cannot review projects. So the idea that the wording isn't in 18A that we can not review projects isn't in there. So that's only the statement we were trying to get.
We, we could still improve, and still make
Wording,
that
yeah.
point and just, because the point is that as it stands, the sentence doesn't make a lot of sense, or it doesn't tell the reader what you're really wanting to say.
Well,
Yeah.
Howard, you want to repeat what you said?
Something. You're safe. You or save. This is a very. It's like. It's like glaring. So, like. It's not specifically. That's what is.
I think we would, and I'm totally in totally agreement with you, but I think we should drop the word include. I think does not state that whatever. Instead of, the word include is,
About does not preclude
not
HLAC
preclude.
from reviewing and commenting on development.
There you go.
Repeat that again.
Does not preclude HLAC from reviewing and commenting on development projects.
I would just like to mention the bylaws specifically say that the commission may submit comments and draft correspondence relating to the impacts on historic resources in proposed projects in the county. That's the bylaws, and those are approved by the board.
That's not chapter 18A. 'cause,
True.
the quotes I've been getting from people in planning and development, why we're not seeing projects is we read chapter 18A and it doesn't say anything that you are supposed to be reviewing projects. And
Right, but if these,
but the bylaws are saying otherwise.
I just would suggest putting
Yeah.
adding the bylaws statement in there.
So we could use the bylaws as a way of just, if we have further discussions that counteract what they see in chapter 18A. Well, the bylaws say this.
It's just providing more complete information. Right. Yes.
Well, maybe we should word this kind of like the sentence that was written. But then add another sentence that our bylaws do say. That. In other words, have both included in. Full sentence. I mean,
Okay.
So
Chapter 18A does not preclude HLAC from review and commenting on developmental projects per our bylaws.
This,
I would just add the language from the bylaws as a second point.
yeah, I would think 2 points. Right? They won 18A. We just had, and the bylaws do say. And then whoever would like to send that to me, because I have this master on my computer, and I can just quickly change it. So, Commissioner Steinbach, would you like to do that and send it, and I can just plug it in? I mean, this is still a working document. It's nothing that, ideas for commissioners to use at their will. But I think we can have our word, especially if we decide to hand it. I want to make sure. Okay, so those were everything that was starting 1.5 years ago. Anyone here can think of anything else? Basically what we're doing now. I mean, basically it's saying that we're creating new landmarks. We're taking care of existing landmarks. We are no longer reviewing planning development projects going through seeing us unless someone says they want to have a landmark. It mentions how money now. We'll just move on. Budget. In 2012, 2011, 2012, HLAC's budget was 21,100. In 2024, 2025, HLAC budget is currently 21,100, unchanged in 13 years. In 2011, 2012, planning development line item for staff support was 6,800. In 2024, 2025, this item is currently 6,800, unchanged for 13 years. Planning Development is now a full cost recovery department where all costs for designations, resolutions, and appeals are charged. 4. Chapter 18A6, petitioning for funds allows for HLAC to petition the Board of Supervisors for funds necessary to carry out the purpose of this chapter. So, yes.
Resolution. That's a problem. Isn't that also a inspection? Sorry. Does not all take place in
So you're thinking enforcement? I'm just thinking, I was just looking at thinking of the Moody Sisters cottage because it was paid out of, that was a lawsuit not charged to us, but I mean, it was paid, it's processed through county council.
but is being story.
Yeah, this whole idea of the budget is we're trying to put in very succinct what our budget is and what has changed that all of a sudden our budget doesn't work anymore. It's because we're being charged for all this stuff that we weren't charged before. And that's the whole idea of this, is just say that, you know, I heard the number 2017, but it was not that long ago that it became a full cost recovery department. So, you know, they tried to keep it the same way. And I think what happened is their budget is so tight, they realized, oh, we need to charge. We're not. Someone brings a nomination, like the public, it has to be charged to that person now that brings. But I'm talking about what's being charged to us, and that's the designation, resolutions, appeals are now being charged because planning development is full cost. Yes. That's what I was just saying. The number 2017 kind of sounds like that's when that. I just remember someone saying
That
change.
might be relevant. This is
Well, they didn't. Well, I think what happened is they, like I just said, they kept status quo for a while. And then they realized something's got to change because costing, having to pay too much doing these things.
so. The no cost recovery was when the gentleman, the accountant came. And gave, what this section called budget is about. It's just kind of reviewing what was and what is. So these things were not charged to the HLAC budget, but they were paid for by planning and development. So full cost recovery words mean transfer costs to the HLA budget, is what we are now questioning. And that whether you include enforcement in that or whether enforcement is part of the deal, I don't care.
Well, maybe
just
we
a-
just get rid of mentioning full cost revenue, just say planning development now charges costs for designation resolutions and appeals are now charged to HLAC budget. Don't even mention that it's a full cost recovery.
If we're going to have talking good so that we can make the point that we're never made aware of this philosophy. So was it a month ago? And all of a sudden, we're surprised. This is a good reason why we need to increase our budget. I agree with that point. What is it that you want? What is the talking?
Well, right now,
Three.
this line is all about the budget, what it is now. I mean, we're showing how things haven't changed. And the idea is that we now are being charged for these projects. The next section is about possible solutions. That's why this was kind of actually pretty brief, because it's just showing what our actual budget has changed and that we're now being charged for things that we weren't. So if someone wants to work on wording for this, and we can, like I say, this is something, a work in progress, that we can think about it, maybe send it to me. I can't send it to all of you because that's
I can revise my comment or send my comment. These are not. What are the
The idea is this is having a lot of stuff in here that supervisors probably don't know because, they're looking at big picture stuff. And so that's something that you're sit on your desk, look at later, and they can look through and they can start thinking, oh, how can they run what they're supposed to do in chapter 18A with all this stuff? So, I mean, that's kind of the whole idea of the sub.
So when I talked to Supervisor Hartman, she had no idea. So she directed staff to go figure out.
So
So
wouldn't something like this would have
exactly,
been very
it
helpful?
is.
In fact, even now,
And the shorter the bullet points for us, I think better,
Yeah.
rather than get into diatribes.
right, that's why I tried to do. And a lot of this stuff, like I say, this is just general talking points. You can say whatever you want to your supervisor. This is free, that if you want to go ahead and, oh, let me just send it to her, because we talked about it. That's fine. I mean,
Wanted to in number 2, I make a really good point. The other sentence that says this translates to only 23.2 hours of planning and development time.
number 2.
2.
Okay.
So $6,800 was
Yeah.
still is $6,800.
Right.
And at current P&D rates, this translates to only 23.2 hours of their time annually. It's pretty crazy.
like to make another comment? Is this intended? Give
The idea is, if we're lucky enough to get an appointment with the supervisor, you only have a short time. I mean, everyone is busy. You only have like probably a half hour is the most they give you. And at first, you're losing 10 minutes just on hi, how are you doing? Everything's great, you know. And then when you get down to brass tacks, the idea is you could almost read this, you know, or do it your own way. And then when you say goodbye, if you, you know, because a lot of times you get cut off, they're going off to another meeting. When you get a chance to take a look at this at your leisure and just so you know what's going on at our.
The point I'm trying is that we to leave behind is look at read, talk about. Once took a marketing course that said speak or make your presentation bullet and very weak. And if this is just way too much information. I think our issue can be boiled down to some simple facts. Chair, I tend to agree with that and bullet points concept. I never had a marketing, but I think I heard someone say with executive people, put it all so it fits on one page. Executives don't like to turn pages, not follow. Just shrink it down as much as possible.
So I've been doing marketing for 50 years. This is not an official document. This is stuff for you as a guideline. Go talk to your supervisor. Not anything we have to worry about every word and every bullet point. If you think you want to leave something behind, you can bullet point it. Here's a guideline for you to do that with. That's all it is. Like, I mean, I've already talked to Joan, Supervisor Hartman. You know, I didn't know the back end, so knowing the back end of this whole thing, et cetera. I mean, I've been through the process with designation. I didn't have to pay for anything. Not this. So me, I think, you know, the subcommittee's done a good job of putting together all the facts for you to boil it down as you see fit. And either talk to them, or if you want to leave something behind, leave something behind.
I would make the point that you ought to have so that we're presenting the same. So that there is something look at. If we all do our own thing, they're going to get it right.
I'll put together one.
Well, let's go through the rest of this. The next section is, okay, they know the budget, it shows what our budget is now, what it was 13 years ago. It hasn't changed. We're now being charged for all of this. So the next section is, what is a possible solution? Okay, where do we go? You know, how can we change or do changes? Okay, one, Board of Supervisors uses Chapter 18A6 to increase HLAC's annual budget to a corresponding to increasing costs. So we have that provision that we could use. Now, before, this was written in here before, when the idea of the subcommittee was thinking that we would still ask for the same amount from planning and development, and the extra amount we would ask through Chapter 18A6. Now that we know that everything all comes at once, we really want to have a budget that basically the CEO's office will attach, you know, and goes to the full board of supervisors for. So we're looking now for a single number and not trying to break it up between what money comes from where, because it all comes from the general fund. So I'm not sure, I guess, the 18A6, I think is more of a last minute problem, like say we're in March and we really need to get something done. We don't have money. We have to go to Board of Supervisors, say, can you fund us get this through the end of the year? I think that's really what the point of Chapter 18A6 is. County Council, can you help us that kind of, am I going in the right direction? with that? I mean, I think it's, we mentioned it, what it is earlier. So I'm not sure if that's really considered a solution now. I'm looking at, we just need to work with planning and development, come up with an increase. Because going to the board of supervisors means it has to be agendized, it has to, which is gonna cost money to do that, which probably wouldn't happen. You don't have. Let me go through and we can come back to that. Number 2 is fund HLAC from permit fees. Go back to reviewing projects that created revenues from planning. So we used to review projects, give comments, and would go on. The people that were presenting these projects had to pay fees that helped pay for time that came. And when they took away the projects coming to us, planning development isn't collecting fees that help pay for our meetings. I mean, you look at the planning commission, all of those, everything they talk about is a project going through. The owner of those projects are paying fees. So the planning commission is not making money, but they're at least being paid for those times. Now, when I had discussion on Friday, Lisa thought that there was a special HLAC permit fee, and she looked up on the computer and she couldn't find one. So this might be mute now too, because maybe there isn't a separate HLAC fee. So I think it just goes general fees. They probably use those general fees to help pay for. So this is kind of a question mark. 3, adopt the Mills Act to give property owners incentive to designate. Again, this is a long-term possible solution. It's nothing now, but I mean, it's something we need to make it, put it out there. Yes.
But didn't we find something that had been adopted by the Board of Supervisors at one point in time and then nothing ever happened?
It was discussed in, just like
Trails.
plans, Lisa, when I talked to Lisa, she said, oh, I think this is a great thing. I think that's what the Board of Supervisors did at that time. Said, oh yeah, this is a good possibility. And then it didn't go anywhere. This is where we found the budget was the same in 2011, 2012. Because when I was doing the research, we did research on incentives, you know, we did all that research on incentives. We found that they did all of this in 2011. The Board of Supervisors, where it actually was an agendized item, it came up with all of these, which I showed everybody, have it on record. Nothing ever happened. I spent a lot of staff time to prepare that. And that's what when I talked to Lisa, I said, this has already been done. It shouldn't have to be done again. Just take what was done and spent and try to move forward. But I think we should keep putting it out there. Restore permanent full-time position for architectural historian / planner to attend meetings, reduce costs, outsourcing to consultant. Now, this is just a general thing that I think should be in there. I was always just using the city of Santa Barbara. They have an architectural historian, which is a / planner. That is the person that goes to their historic landmarks meetings. And because right now, if they need something done, like a historic report, they have to outsource it. So it could actually save money if they, didn't have to pay for the consultant to do their historic.
Perhaps the word restore isn't quite appropriate since they've never had that position here.
Or have
Yeah.
a permanent. They had a historian.
Archaeologists.
Not an architect. 5, limit HLAC scope and purview to only create new landmarks and places of historic merit and maintain existing landmarks. That is what's happening right now. Board of Supervisor needs to substantially increase HLAC's budget for line items, planning, development, staff support, 2025, 2026. Now, I don't know, I put that, I think we put that as limit HLAC scope, because that's basically what we're doing.
How is that a solution?
Well, because the solution is they would have to increase the support line item. If by limiting currently, or say currently, HLAC scope and purview is only, maybe say that currently. Currently, HLAC scope and purview is to only create.
Yeah, but you're listing possible solutions.
Should we just say? Board of
You're
Supervisors
not saying what's going on. I don't know.
I don't think that that first half, item 5, is a solution. I think it's something you would like to do, but it's not really. Whereas I think the second half, 5 and 6 are the same idea. As DOS needs substantial increase in budget, that line. Without an increase, HLAC will not be able.
That sounds good. Just merge those two together, get rid of that first sentence.
Didn't you already say that in bullet point 1?
That's 18A6. That's where you can actually petition for funds. 18A is our whole chapter. 18A6 is the chapter that
Allows
allows to petition the Board of Supervisors.
I would not mind. Say, increase it. Please, increase the budget. Without an increase, you will not be able to, no, it's merged.
Yeah, I mean, that's less lines and less bullet points by doing that. So just say Board of Supervisor needs to substantially increase HLAC's budget for line item planning development staff support for 2025, 2026. Without an increase in funds, HLAC cannot fulfill its purpose as prescribed in chapter. Number 7, which would now be number 6, use fines and penalties for abuse and neglect of county landmarks or county places of his merit to repair, replace, and rehabilitate the damaged property, or to use these funds to preserve, protect, and or restore the county's historic resources. These funds are directed towards HLAC to carry out the mission. I had a hard time with this one because I know you had changed too. It's hard to get the wording in here right.
So, this number 7 is kind of occasional. It happens occasionally, almost remote. Just, in the case of extreme HLAC use fine, not only HLAC but POD and Board of Supervisors. Fine, it's a neglect. Use of those funds. Reserve. I don't say. I do think. HLSD use fine.
Well, that was the reason why second sentence to me was they could just keep the funds themselves, planning development, kind of lead it in general fund. To be directed to us so that we have the opportunity to direct those fund projects.
Goes back to this HLAC really is not a so, but there is the problem following HLAC side use neglect as first and read all the way up and get use neglect fine penalty and so forth. That is that my opinion. That
Well,
so therefore, enforcement would not belong. So
18A does say that we can, like, we says that we can decide that it was in the past, we came up with a solution to the Board of Supervisors. We plan to say that it's under,
My understanding from 18A was HLAC did already.
the historic, Historic Landmark Advisory Commission is charged with the responsibility for the enforcement of the provisions of the chapter and all conditions imposed thereon, unable to otherwise obtain compliance with the provisions of the chapter. May refer to the matter to the Board of Supervisors or the council for appropriate. And that is what we did with Moody Sisters. We had a hearing on it. The owner was here, decided to do a letter to the Board of Supervisors and County Council. Not- They gave a list of what they did wrong, and then we had an attachment of what we thought. One was built 50, one was off. And then we also mentioned, what we're mentioning here is give us some of that, if there is a fine, give us some of that money so that we can use it for historic preservation throughout. That was in the letter. Of course, after that, the county did take that and went on.
Let's say,
Right.
is enforcement one of the other items, I nominate, designate, appeal. Is enforcement part of what we do?
We do enforcement, but
We need,
we didn't, what we mentioned before was about the budget is not, we're not being charged for enforcement at the moment.
well, I understand that. You're asking in the budget. You're asking, you want to ask for money for those things. One of the
Go ahead.
observation is that all of our time is voluntary. And so if there is, we're just passing on issues like this to other entities following. So it becomes kind of a complicating factor. Back. So, to your point, we all volunteer, but our volunteering was work. It's not. Well, but they, if there is specifically for violations or law breaking or whatever, those entities have a way of grouping costs. Well, I mean, if they sue somebody, well, I mean, but let's say you have a violation. Inspector works in the building department. And that takes time. He has a report. So that's part of enforcement. Yeah, but that's their issue. We can't claim money. So that.
Okay, so I just want to, what I brought up, and it was actually brought up to somebody 2 years ago, is using our fishing game example. The fishing game, there's fines, so if they catch somebody illegally fishing somewhere, fishing license, there's fines. Those fines are given to the Fish and Game Commission to use for restoring habitat. They give out grants. So that was the whole idea. That we lose a historic structure. Why not we just have like the game committee? If monies come to us, we're asked to give out grants or whatever. Or I mentioned it to Lisa. She actually mentioned earlier, and I talked to her, she thought that was very good idea. So I'm hoping that it moves on, but like I say, we don't have a report yet. That's how I was getting to this, is because it is already happening, like the Game Commission, where they get money from fines. I don't know if it's fishing, I don't think it's fishing license, but it's like fine. And when it's wrong, they use that money. to be given.
I think this is a very complicated. And if we're going to create bullet points, I think we would be better served to go with this one.
I think it might be worth including now because there's a possibility of some money right now with the Moody Cottage thing going on.
That's what I was thinking,
Strike.
is this
It's
is a
hot.
possible extra money that we can use. It wouldn't sustain a budget because it's a one-time thing. But it's something that we want them to know that, see a report about this. Nice if you let it do our job. Preservation. The idea of the subcommittee was thinking, you have this time with your supervisor, at least get it all out there, it's in their mind. Think about it, not really going to be part of the budget, which we get to, and it's noon already. Move on. But it was just idea to put ideas into their head that might come back later. I mean, when, like I just said, what happened with the Cold Springs Bridge, 3 of the supervisors mentioned HLAC budget issue. Well, we found out that we had 2 different supervisors. 2 of the 3 supervisors that spoke, 2 of the 3 were the ones that were talked to by the commission. So obviously, the cost work, and just giving them all this information they could use at their knowledge, I think, is very helpful. Oh,
Before we jump off, I worked in the building department for a number of years when I first started out county building department. And even though that was an infant organization at the time, people that I worked for had been there dozens of years. The county has always had a cost recovery system permitting. In this case, when you use a county inspector, go out on a job, spend time, write it up, report, et cetera, the public works director, the building department, building official is wondering, who do I charge for this person's time and to what project? So they want their money too. It's not just the planning and development, although building department is under planning. So I don't think it's easy simply dismiss this by saying this is too complicated or talk to the supervisor. Just, this dispense. The issue of enforcement and the cost of inspection to follow up and to see that the work is done correctly, whatever is there. If it's not mentioned, it's not on the table, and it becomes a big surprise later. I don't believe in solving problems one-on-one. I believe always think of the third party. Some other attorney is going to look at this. Some applicant's attorney, some owner's attorney look at this and say, who's paying for this? Why was my client charged? He didn't know, whatever. I don't think it's as simple as to simply omit the issue of enforcement, to simply omit clarification of who pays for that piece of it is a big mistake. Oversight.
the idea is, we can all say what we want to our supervisor. If you don't want to say it, want to put it in there, that's fine. You do, go ahead. This is just give ideas. Okay, we really need to move on here. the last one was move HLAC from planning. This was something that was brought up from one of our commissioners before they left. It's just a out of the box thing. Move HLAC from planning development and put it directly under the county board of supervisors. It's just, that's a possible solution to the budget. A different commission, but it's just to throw it out there as it's, something that probably never would happen. Because, we do deal with planning development projects, but anyway, that is a possible. Okay, now the real estate HLAC proposed planning desk support line item. So we know our budget hasn't been increased. So number one is HLAC can reasonably handle 4 new landmarks in a fiscal year. It has been brought to our attention that it takes 20 hours to do the work to bring from a when we certify a landmark, our level, going to the board of supervisors, it takes approximately 20 hours. And the hourly rate now is $292. So for one landmark, that is $5,840 per landmark. If we do 4 a year times 4, that's $23,360. So that's just, we're doing 4 landmarks reasonably. Now the number 2, the cost of planner to attend HLAC meetings. Figure 3 hours for a meeting, $292 equals $876 per meeting. 12 meetings a year is $10,512. Well, this was done before I had the meeting with Lisa Plower. And as we know, we're going to have a planner, but it's not going to be charged. So that could be crossed out. But I forgot to include that we have an administrative assistant that we don't not including in the budget that you have before you that we're going to talk shortly. And the way I understand it is everyone the hourly rate is the same for everybody because they take all the money that's from the budget, they just chop it up. It doesn't matter who it is. That's the rate charged. So I'm thinking we're going to have to probably keep this in, and I have to talk to Lisa Plowman because I didn't think about it at the time of the meeting, but when we had our subcommittee meeting, we didn't think about Jonathan's billing to do the minutes, to do the agenda, to do all the stuff when I call him, all that stuff, we need to have that included. So I'm thinking we might need to just keep that in there and change it from planner to staff support. And then I'll talk further with Lisa Plowman to find out if that's what I'm saying same or if she come up with a different number. I don't know what that number is, but we forgot as a subcommittee. to think about it. He has to bill everything he does is billed. So when he's at a meetings, he bills his time to our budget. So that's why I want to probably keep this in here, but don't add the word planner. We aren't. So I'm thinking we could change that to staff support to attend meetings. Jonathan's actual title is hearing support, so maybe we put it. But I hate to just limit it to just one person. I think we just do a general staff support. There might be other staff. Well, the way I understand it, I think it is because they just divide it up and everyone is billing the same. They take, everything, pensions, whatever, all goes in. So I came up to total cost per year for planning support line item is $33,008. Now's the time. Let's quickly, that other page, it actually looks like our budget page passed out. We can kind of look at this at the same time to save time because we're really running out of time. I had made some corrections. Yeah, okay. So it says here, total cost per year for planning support line should be $33,872. So it was rounded up to 34,000 to make it. So you can see this budget line in front of you. Everything else is kept the same except for support line. So 6,800, if you take the 34,000 minus 6,800, the new addition is 27,200. And when I was talking with Lisa Plowman, we just subtracted $10,000 because we thought we didn't need it. So that is why, how you see what you see here. So original is 21,100. The new addition would be 27,200. So if we do 4 projects a year, total new budget would be 48,000. Yes, and that's the other thing that just happened is, to be realistic, if the 90,100, I told her personally, I thought we could do at least 2,000. We could take 2,000 away from that and move it up to support item. So that makes it a little bit less out of, in other words, it helps.
I think that's a good political thing to show that, shows our goodwill.
Right. And if you look at our current, that we showed today, I mean, we have a 9,100. Currently, we've spent 1,687. And sure, there's some expenses still coming in, but that still gives a lot of money. Because remember, our nominations, we pay a consultant for that, which averages about $1,000 per. So just to be in general, you're looking at $4,000 a year for nominations. If we do 4 nominations a year, and then there's plaques that come out of there, which they're not super expensive, but they $1,500 for a year. Be nice to keep up. So I think we would still have plenty of. We moved 2,000.
Just a point of clarification. So the 48.3, which is the total proposed, is before we knew about the $10,000, 500, the cost of the planner not being charged.
Yes, if you look at, yeah, item 2,
Does that come off of the?
but I'm thinking that item 2 needs to be changed to staff support to attend HLAC meeting.
So in other words, you're taking out the planner and putting in Jonathan,
Yeah,
and so therefore,
it kind of is a wash. I mean, you know, and when this is what the sheet that you have in front of you of the proposed is what I handed Lisa, and she already, you know, took out 10,000 because of the planner. But like I said, I forgot to mention, we forgot as a subcommittee that we forgot that we still have
what
Jonathan.
is Jonathan's?
He is a hearing support.
Staff hearing support.
So, you know, I was changing all of this after the meeting with Lisa, but I'm thinking the only, except for moving the 2,000 from professional service to planning support, our total line is going to still be around 48,000. Well, no, because it's still there. It's just moved up. Oh, no, well. 30. So that would change to 30, that would change to 32,000. Right.
Mr. Chair, I understand the potential political benefits of reducing the professional services, but it just seems like a bad idea to me because that limits some of the things that we could do. We used to use that money on surveys, way back when. Uh, which wasn't the best use of the money, but you know, I think we could come up with better things we could use consultants on that could really benefit the county and us. Of course, it makes more volunteer work for us to figure out what to do and supervise, but you hate to lose that ability, that flexibility of having that budget there. But I understand the other side
Well,
of moving it around to, you know,
I think it would show, as I said, this year's next budget, all these departments are going to be asked for some. And here we are asking for an increase. So
well, but
this is by us showing that we're willing to be less professional services, even though the overall is going up. At least it shows that we understand that there is a budget problem for the
Yeah.
county. And yes, or maybe
I just don't think we've been going along for so many years without asking for anything to voluntarily give up more. Doesn't seem right somehow. But I understand your reasoning.
Well, but if you look at that number and you look at, I don't have them in front of me, but we have never used that amount the last at least 3 years, I know, 4 years. It's always been eaten up by overcosts in the support items. So, but it's like
Yeah.
we've never had enough projects to use the 9100.
Well,
We did do some outsourcing for our archives, which is wonderful.
and we're having somebody help us on these nominations. But I don't know.
We can only do.
You're absolutely
4.
right. I
We
can't.
can only do 4 nominations a year. And,
Or was something I just
Yeah.
came up with.
I mean, I think
we could put 10 down, but I'm looking at realistically how long it takes from now that we don't have people coming to us with nominations. Our subcommittee looks out, say Cold Springs, we said, oh, this should be a possibility. We reach out to Caltrans, they gave us the report. We looked over everything. Yes, it is qualifying. Then we had a meeting just to discuss, should we have a nomination? So we had a meeting for that. A month later, 2 months later, we decided at the meeting, we decided to move ahead, and then we ended up hiring a historian. That took 2 to 3 months to write the nomination. You have to have a 30-day review to review the nomination. The chair has to write a letter that they saw, reviewed it. Then we brought it to the full board to look at the nomination. It doesn't always get approved all at once because there's also a resolution involved. So there's usually another meeting. So in other words, if you look at the time, you're looking at an 8-month period from the when we first think about it to where it finally gets to the Board of Supervisors for final approval. And I just came up with 4 thinking that is a realistic number that we can do. And if you look at the bottom, number 4 on your proposed H budget, it says if there's any unused funds, it just goes back to the general fund. So we're showing them that, okay, we're requesting this. If for some reason we don't use all of our money, it's going to go right back to the general fund into their emergency or however they do.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Ron's comment, and I think that where we are showing goodwill is in the area of next division number 5, where any unused fund back. I think that's a gesture. I mean, we don't need all that money, but I don't think we should be giving up essential to run the department and carry on the day-to-day business. If we do 1 nomination, then we'll be getting that money. If we do 5 nominations and we overdo it, well, maybe we can continue one of the nominations the next year rather than burning up more capital. Let's just keep it what it is. Calculation of 4 nominations, it seems reasonable to me. Let's leave it at that. goes back.
Well, here, this will be really brief, but here's another reason to not give back any professional service money, is that I think the 3 or 4 nominations that we have recently done, we were able to do them very inexpensively in terms of professional services because the historical work had already been done. Professional, at no cost to us. Well, in the future, our hands, might be tied. I know all of us have recommended one property or another that would make a fabulous landmark, but there's no historian report. Well, if we were to retain that $9,000, we could hire a historian, somebody like Amber, to actually do the report, or at least do some research that can contribute to the nomination form. I mean, there are various ways of doing this, but if you think about it, we could probably find that money would really come in handy for our mission.
No, say something.
Thank you. Yeah, along the lines of what Ron and Howard were saying about not taking it out of the services. Because the suggestion was already made during your talking with Lisa Plowman, maybe $2,000 might, that's a verbal thing. That's already in her mind. So rather than putting it on paper, which might suggest to somebody looking at it later saying, well, 2,000 is not needed, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 is not needed. So if we just leave it as a verbal thought rather than a written, something that you can look at visually, I think that might be a better idea. Let them make the decision later if they need to reduce that a bit. Because this is just a suggestion from us anyway. The $27,000 maybe reduced even to 24,000. Right.
And what I was planning to do after this meeting, first of all, I also mentioned that forgot to have support. And that basically would probably be the same amount. So what you have is probably still what we need.
Right.
48,300. And then we could leave it the same because she is the one that came up with maybe moving 2,000. Maybe leave it.
Yes.
She's coming back. Hey,
Yeah.
we
Keep the conversation going.
So let-
Yeah. And just maybe just leave it the way it is, except for changing that wording of that one from master planner to.
Yes.
Does that sound good? Leave it the same. So everything else, I mean, I think we've went over everything. Then the next one is a proposed budget, which we just talked about. I can just change. Everything it says about this. And then the final paragraph is just kind of like a summary. Santa Barbara County Code, Chapter 18A, empowers Santa Barbara County Historic Landmark Advisor to promote economic well-being of the county by serving resources in the public interest. HLAC is not a revenue-generating agency. Still, its mission, HLAC needs extra funds outside of the planning development. Get rid of that. Just maybe say, unless HLAC budgeting expenses are paid by. I think we should get rid of all. This is going to be revenue, HLAC. Just leave. HLAC is not a revenue generating area. Just need additional funding.
Can I still ask that all of this be boiled down?
A lot of this can be definitely. Okay, so like the whole idea is if someone between now and our next meeting wants to talk to the supervisor, you don't have to wait for the final, I mean. help, Then, like I say, in 2 weeks, I'll hear, well, 2 weeks, but, I'm gonna be hearing back from planning development, see what they're coming up with. And probably for our next meeting, be able to share that with February. I don't think it's that calendar, I didn't get that from her, but I know they're doing talks now. Has to be approved. So,
We're okay to call our supervisors and discuss.
we always have been talk to our supervisors whenever we want to, and so this was just to help. You can peel whatever you want out of it. It's up to you. Whatever you think is the most important. My supervisor just got elected just a week ago. Fall, and so I'm going to wait a bit until he gets settled. I think I already mentioned in ex parte earlier that I did have a meeting with him in August after he was elected. Did sit down with who I was. His representative. But I feel, I'll wait a bit because he's being overwhelmed.
Maybe it's my insecurity as a I need more.
What I was going to talk to you about is I was always a district was appointed by into the area of my whole life. It just happened that they changed the boundaries. I was going to see if you'd like to make. I know, yeah, and I know her personally too, so that kind of, a little bit. So, but I thought maybe the two of us could go and talk to her.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
very quickly, because I really appreciate the work that the subcommittee has done and Keith in particular. This represents a lot of time and a lot of meeting time and writing, and it's ongoing. Here's my take at the moment, that the elephant in the room is still, what are we here for? How can we serve the county? What can we do to help process the process work that planning and development has to do? And the budget is a big part of that, obviously, and it's interrelated, but how can this commission contribute to the work of the county? What can the administration do to make us want to show up once a month and to put in time behind the scenes and what can they do to show us that they appreciate us and they appreciate our wisdom and knowledge? And we need to have our role in this process nailed down and described and laid out, so we have some surety. Apparently, Lisa indicated to you that something about continuing to have HLAC review projects. Well, nothing is happening on that, even though she has said to the Board of Supervisors that HLAC is contributing. We're not contributing. They don't bring any projects to us. They put a project in the box on our computers, and we've been told numerous times that we're not allowed to, as a commission, comment on anything that's not on the agenda. So we're back to square one with what are we here for? yes, we need the budget, but we also need a mission. You know, and we want to work with planning and development in some sort of agreement or compromise. Maybe it can never go back the way it was in terms of us regularly seeing and reviewing projects, but there's got to be some goodwill on their part to allow us to operate with the assurance that they're actually listening to us and that we're contributing. So I would like to see any future conversations with Lisa and the planners incorporate that. And Nicole, Lou indicated to me that she would certainly support some movement in that direction, and that may be how they have agreed to appoint her as our planner. So that's where I'm coming from.
I think this is just the beginning of talk throughout rock pile that we're talking about. Wasn't really aware of that. Yeah. She wasn't quite aware. Well, she was. It's something the planners are doing, giving to us, and it wasn't going to her. And the idea that they're being asked if they want to be a landmark and it doesn't come to us, the idea I got, I'm not going to go into detail, I don't want to hurt the mouth, but it was the thing that she was kind of surprised.
Incredible.
You know, so I mean, it's talking, it's making awareness between everybody that hopefully we will get something going on. So
Well, I am encouraged, though. This is a lot of positive.
I had
Yes.
a nice weekend after that meeting with her. It
Yeah.
was just it was a long meeting. It was
I'm-
almost an hour long. but She
I-
stepped behind. She wasn't looking at the clock. Oh, I haven't, she really we went over lots of things, which I mentioned.
Well, I'm encouraged, and I like the direction it's going.
Okay.
I hope it
Okay, it is.
can
afternoon.
bear results.
To watch our budget here. So I am going to, that was the end of our standard agenda. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and our next meeting will be February 10th, 2025, 10 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors. Thank you very much.